With us now, Brendan Steinhauser, CEO of the Alliance for Secure AI and Steinhauser Strategies partner. Good morning to you. The future is now, and for some, it's pretty scary. Talk about the U.S. government's efforts to deliberately pace AI and what that development may look like.
Yeah, it really is quite concerning. And what I always tell people is the people that are building the technology, the folks in Silicon Valley that are the closest to this technology, are the most concerned. And so it was good to see that nearly 1,300 of them signed a petition this week, including, some of the founders and co-founders of these major companies, but more importantly, the people building the technology, the engineers and the folks, working on this to try and make AI go well. They signed this petition saying we need the U.S. government to pursue an international agreement on pacing AI to make sure that we develop it responsibly with safeguards in place so that the models don't, outpace human capabilities, because the very people building this technology have warned us that if we don't do that, it could lead to, frankly, the end of the human race, the end of human dominance on Earth. That is nothing that any of us want. And so I think we have to work hard to get this right.
Yeah, an existential threat, for sure. How optimistic, though, are you, Brendan, that the government or these companies can intersect the technology at which the pace it has seemed to grow?
It's really difficult, but I think the companies do have it in their power to act responsibly, to put internal safeguards in place, to work together. Some of them have even suggested, like Elon Musk and Demis Hassabis have talked about working together to keep each other informed. But I think most of us understand that that's probably not enough. We do need the federal government, the national security apparatus to have some eyes on what's going on. We need Congress to act and pass legislation that requires the companies to tell the government if something is about to go wrong or if something has gone wrong, so-called incident reporting requirements. So I think that's an important part of this. And I think it's really good that the White House and especially the national security team has looked at all of this, and they are taking this very seriously. And we need them to continue to take measures to make sure that we do put in proper safeguards.
Right. They have the tools to do something about it. What concerns you most when you talk about the threat that AI poses to the human race? Be specific on things that it could do.
Well, I think if you just look at it logically, if we develop a technology that is almost like another species in our midst, and it is thousands of times faster and smarter than us, which is what they're saying that they're building, this kind of super intelligence, that, as Elon Musk said recently to The Economist, the likely outcome is that AI essentially dominates human beings and not the other way around. He basically said, it would be like expecting chimpanzees to outpace human beings. That's not going to happen. And so I think not developing a super intelligence would be a smart thing, because it could act so rapidly, so quickly, that we couldn't even devise measures to protect ourselves in that scenario. And so what could it do? It could develop a novel pathogen, a novel bioweapon that is used against human beings and could wipe human beings off the face of the earth. That is the nightmare scenario that experts have been warning about for decades.
Wow. Scary stuff. When it comes to the U.S. and its efforts in the AI race, there's certainly conversations around trying to get a grasp on this technology and prevent those dangerous outcomes. Is that same appetite true in other nations that we're competing with, China, for example?
It's a great question. And I think the answer is yes. We have seen signs that even the CCP, the regime that controls China and runs it with an iron fist, also shares our interest in just maintaining the supremacy of human beings. And of course, they want to maintain their own political power in Beijing. And so I do think that we can have an agreement with them that is verifiable and enforceable. And frankly, I think President Trump might be the only person or the best placed person to get that done. The man who's known for the art of the deal, coming in from a position of strength, sitting down with the Chinese and saying, look, we can compete in all sorts of ways. We're going to compete economically and geopolitically, but let's agree not to develop a super intelligence that we don't control. Let's agree to do that so that human beings can have the competition among ourselves, and we're not in competition with essentially an alien species that we've created that is 10,000 times smarter and faster than us.
And Brendan, final question is for your advice for folks watching at home. I mean, AI and ChatGPT have become a very regular touch point for people to rely on to help them through their daily lives. What are the opportunities you see with using AI responsibly, but also the risks in becoming too reliant on it?
I think most of us have used these models that are really quite incredible and helpful to our daily lives, whether it's work or whether it's, planning things or getting sort of advice on certain things. Like, a lot of people use it for meal preparation. People use it to develop a curriculum. People are starting businesses and using AI in a way that's really helpful to them. And I think those are all good uses of AI. I think what we're really concerned about are some of these models at what's called the frontier of development. And so the things that are on the next weeks or months out on the frontier that are more dangerous, frankly. They have more dangerous capabilities. And if we go this path of kind of AIs creating better AIs, that's a really scary proposition. So I think what we want to see is what's called tool AI. Use AI in a way that helps lift up human beings, that helps us be more efficient, helps us potentially develop better medicines or solve the problem of nuclear fusion so we can have abundant energy. I mean, those are the kinds of things that we want to use AI for. Those are the kinds of benefits that we're looking for. And I'm hopeful about that.
All right. Some great information there. Brendan Steinhauser, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Still ahead.